UFC Fight Night 184, aka UFC Vegas 18. We have Alistair Overeem versus Alexandre Volkov. A pretty good main event. We've given you our preliminary picks already. Let's get into our main card picks. Before we do that, welcome to Boxing MMA Picks, where I go by the name of Harris. I'm with Zan, and we are giving you our picks for UFC, different boxing events as well, letting you know which fights to avoid, which fights are worth the money, and which ones you really want to get on top of. So hopefully we can make everyone some money. Let's get right into it. UFC Vegas 18 main card. Let's move on to fight number one. Fight number one, we have Diego Ferreira versus Beniel Dariush. This is an interesting one because they fought back in 2014, right? And at the time, Ferreira lost to Dariush by unanimous decision. I watching that fight again, Dariush showed better stand-up in that fight. He controlled the pace. He controlled the distance. He did have his moments of takedown control, or cage control, I should say. It was a close fight, but Dariush was able to do a little bit more, and he was able to hold his pace a little bit longer than Ferreira was. But one thing that's interesting to note in that fight is that Ferreira did take that fight on short notice, right? I do think that this fight will be real close as well. I mean, when we think about, let's start with Diego Ferreira. When we think about him, switches his stance pretty often, bit of Muay Thai stance, likes to lead in with the kicks, likes to come forward a lot. I mean, he's usually the one that's fighting from the center of the octagon or trying to kind of, outstrike his opponent and land in that center of that cage. His boxing, okay. I think it's a little bit slow, but it is okay. And of course, the jiu-jitsu, right? I mean, we know he's a third-degree black belt. We know he's going to have that clinch work. We know he's going to pull you down to guard if needed. We know he's going to want to take the battle to the ground and show his mettle there. Obviously, a good clinch comes with that. A lot of body locks, submission attempts, and a pretty active guard from his Brazilian jiu-jitsu as well. But as you see, he's not really a takedown artist, so to speak. And Dariush has a pretty high takedown defense. When we think about Dariush, I mean, we know Dariush at this point in his career. I mean, he has pretty good stand-up. He should have the advantage on the feet. He likes to throw a lot of kicks, combinations, a lot of pop on his kicks, a lot of pop on his punches as well. Decent striking defense. I do like the diversity in his striking as well. And I actually think his clinch is good, right? Knees in the clinch against the cage. We know he has that Muay Thai background. He can keep you on the cage as well. And some good takedowns in his own right? He'll go for the fake. He'll go for the level change, regardless of your ability on the ground. Again, going back to that first fight that they had. Although I do think this will be a close fight, I wouldn't be surprised if this fight goes almost in the same way that fight in 2014 did. So I am going to slightly lean in favor of Beniel Dariush on this one. How are you feeling?
I think this is like as you stated, the first fight was a short notice fight. So, and you've seen it when they're fighting. One of the problems that Ferreira had in that fight was after the first round, he had cardio issues after the first round. If you watch Ferreira, though, cardio is not a problem. So clearly he was compromised in that fight back in 2014, and that was a fight a long time ago. These fighters, obviously at that time, Beniel, in my opinion, was the better fighter. I think he was an early bloomer, like he got good immediately. But Ferreira, he took some time. I think that first fight he lost to Beniel. I think it's the cardio. I think that cardio was a big issue there. After the first round, he wasn't able to keep up the pace, and he was able to lose a unanimous decision that he was never in the fight, right? So after that, he lost to Dustin Poirier. He was knocked out. But then he went on a ridiculous win streak, and he has some good wins. He beat the best win I like on his record is versus Rustam Kabilov. And that's a strong wrestler, one of those Dagestan wrestlers. He won that fight, unanimous decision. I think it's going to be a different fight than 2014. I know Beniel Dariush has the stand-up. He has good stand-up. He has kicks. He has Muay Thai. He has very good ground game. Like he's like his jiu-jitsu career is very extensive. He has a lot of medals in jiu-jitsu in a lot of tournaments. So he's definitely a high-level jiu-jitsu fighter. But I think that it comes to the stand-up, he needs space. And Ferreira is now a different type of fighter. He doesn't give you that space that you want. And I think he's going to keep the fight close. He's going to keep the fight in a boxing distance. And I think he's just going to put on a pace that's going to give Dariush some problems this time around. So I think Ferreira's going to pull this off. He had 6 years, 7 years to think about that loss. He's in the best shape of his life. I know he's getting up there in age, but this is his peak right now. This is him at his best. And I think he's going to put on a pace. He's not going to give the space for Dariush to let off his kicks, his heavy striking, because he likes space. He wants space, but I don't think he'll get that space this time around. So I'm going to go with Ferreira here, and I think he's going to win this fight and get revenge on that 2014 fight.
And to your point of closing the space, for the bettors out there, watch his last fight. Watch Diego Ferreira's last fight against Anthony Pettis. The way that he was able to close the space, close the distance. We know Pettis to have pretty good movement around the ring, and Ferreira was able to just stop that, cut that off, take this fight to the ground, and eventually get that second round submission in that fight. So great point, a great thing to keep in mind for this fight. And again, it's going to be a close one. It really is. So that fight in some ways can go either way. Let's move on to fight number 2. In that case, we have Cody Stamann versus Andre Ewell. Cody Stamann, actually, first thing to note about this fight is at 135 pounds. I mentioned that because, of course, we know Cody Stamann has participated at 145 pounds, had a pretty tough fight against Jimmy Rivera in his last one. But again, that was at 145. Stamann still filled out the division, definitely looked big for that 145 division as well. But again, did not quite win that. When I think about Stamann in general, I mean, I see a fighter who's pretty solid all around, pretty reliable all around in a lot of ways. I mentioned his size already. And again, we saw him go up in weight and still fill out the size. So to that point, that could be a factor with one of his strengths, which of course is a high-level ground game, high-level wrestling, takedown defense included as well, although I don't think Andre Ewell is going to attempt that. Body lock, toe stomps, roughing you up against the cage. Just a solid overall fighter. Good patient movement around the ring as well. I like his IQ. I think he has pretty smart striking. It's a lot of fakes, feints, level changes, things like that. And I mean, the thing that I don't love about him is that a lot of his fights are close fights. I think he's had 2 split decision wins. I think he's had a split decision loss as well, and then I think a draw. I could be mistaken there, but yeah, I mean he's in a lot of close fights, and that's not something that you really like because technically speaking, that can be flip of a coin at any point in time. Like we see there, majority decision. Split decision, majority decision. So, close fights. So that tells you that his opponents are kind of always in it in that respect, right? I'll touch on Andre Ewell a bit. I mean, I think he's a pretty explosive, dynamic fighter, a tall southpaw, pretty methodical in his striking, pretty quick and long with his strikes as well. Definitely fights at a distance. I can see that being a factor in this fight versus Cody Stamann, and has a lot of speed, right? What I don't love it, what I like about him, but what I also don't like about him, I like his 1-2 from range, the jab cross. So definitely look for that to be a factor. But what I don't like is that he gets repetitive at times with that 1-2. Doesn't really mix it up as much as I want him to, despite him being a pretty dynamic fighter. Also likes jab to the body. So look for that to be a factor as well. And can sneak into high kicks. So again, it's not that he's only doing one thing. I just think that he kind of repeats the same thing a little bit too much. And one key factor in this fight to be aware of, he starts fights very quickly, starts to fade. I mean, even after that first round, he starts to fade. And he's improved his takedown ability over time. We know Cody Stamann's more than likely going to go for that as a game plan, but he has improved it to some degree. That said, Stamann, he's shown me a sturdy chin over the years. I think this fight's going to be about whether Andre Ewell can catch him in the first round and sort of test his chin in the first round. I don't think that'll happen. What I expect here is that I wouldn't be surprised if Andre Ewell wins round 1, but we have Cody Stamann win round 2, have him win round 3, maybe even win all 3 rounds. And I think in those latter rounds, it's going to come from his sort of movement, his fakes, his feints, and then he's going to take this fight to the ground. So I'm going to go with Cody Stamann on this fight, but Andre Ewell definitely has somewhat of a path to victory as well, especially with that reach advantage. How are you feeling?
Okay, with Cody losing his last fight to, was it Jimmy Rivera?
Yep.
Yeah, with Cody losing the last fight, he can't afford another loss here. So I like Cody here. This is a confident play. He's never lost 2 fights in a row. And Andre Ewell is a better striker at range, and he's more of a boxer in the sense that he throws punches, doesn't really throw the kicks. But he's the better striker from range. Now, when they get closer, that's where I think Stamann definitely can cause some problems. But with the wrestling, he's going to get this on the ground. Cody has some of the best wrestling in the division. He's going back to the division he started in with the UFC, so I think this is a good spot for him. He's going to be the stronger guy. Easy win. I like Cody Stamann, confident choice here.
Agreed. I like that.
And one thing as well, like, did I say it? My boy Andre Ewell, good striker, but he has 4 wins in the UFC, I believe. And I'm just going off memory. And he has no knockouts. He has decisions. Like, he doesn't get knockouts. So I like Cody here, and I feel very confident. I think this is something you can put on a lot of your parlay pieces.
Great pick, and great point there about not really landing those knockouts. In addition to me trusting Cody's chin, yeah, I'm pretty confident in Cody Stamann as well. Let's move on to fight number 3. In that case, we have Alexandre Pantoja versus Manel Kape. I'm gonna let you get this one started. That's your boy right there.
All right, so we got a really tough fight here. We got let's talk about Manel Kape. So he likes to box. He has hands. He's very strong for his division. Like, he's very athletic. He has some good wins on his record as well. He beat Kai Asakura. He's the guy that beat Kojoji Horiguchi. But that guy used to be in the UFC. He was a top 5 ranked fighter when he was with the UFC. So he's a good fighter. But with Kape, what you're getting from Kape is a guy with heavy hands. So he's looking to finish you. A lot of his wins are by knockouts, or pretty much all of his wins are by knockouts. And he's lost 2 fights by decision. Can you pull up that stat on are you looking at it right now?
Yep, we got 9 wins by knockout, 5 wins by submission, 1 by decision. And then in his 4 losses, 2 of them are sub, 2 of them are decision. So he's never been knocked out, but he knocks people out.
Yeah, he knocks people out. And he's not really a decision guy. He has 1 win in decision. He has 2 losses in the decision. So he's fighting a guy in Pantoja that has fought all these guys, the best of the best in the UFC. And he's never been knocked out. I seen him dropped. Ferreira dropped him. A couple other guys dropped him. I seen him get dropped, but he gets back up, recovers. When it comes to the stand-up, I think the stand-up from distance, I give the stand-up edge to Pantoja. He also has a diverse attack with the leg kicks. But when they get close, Kape or Kape, however you pronounce it, is ruthless. He has a lot of power. And I think this is a close fight where Manel Kape could come out here and knock him out in the first round, or Manel Kape could get taken to the distance, second, third round. We know he's not 50% when it goes decision. Pantoja goes to decision. He can take the shot, so he can come out and lose the first round. But I can see Pantoja turning it around, second, third round, and again, he has a big advantage on the ground. I didn't really discuss anything there, but when it comes to the ground game, he has a big advantage. Now, his wrestling to get the fight to the ground against a strong, athletic fighter like Manel is going to be tough. But I think if he could somehow get this fight to the ground, a single leg, if he can somehow get the back, he's really good in those spots. And that's where he has the big edges, the jiu-jitsu. And the stand-up is pretty close. So in a very close fight, I'm going to go with Pantoja, the guy that can go the distance, the more proven guy at this point, who's fought the better competition and still has a better record. So I'm going to go with Pantoja here to win, which could be a war, could be fight of the night. I got Pantoja.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, what I was going to say if I had gone first is that I think a lot of this fight is going to depend on Manel Kape's IQ. Because to your point, Pantoja has more tools. He's more proven. He has more tools. He's never been, finished. Those are important things. And those are important things versus somebody who, for what it's worth, is somewhat looking for that finish, who sort of gets most of his fights by finish. So that is a factor. You have to, you may like Kape and you may like him in round one, but you kind of have to go with logic on this one. And for all we know, Kape could win on the feet, and this fight stays on the feet, and somehow, some way, he could win. But to your point, if Pantoja brings this fight to the ground, he at least wins the round, if not, maybe finds a way to finish it by smothering him or whatnot. So this one's going to be interesting. Part of me likes Kape to win this fight, but I am going to have to go with logic and say in the latter rounds, Pantoja is going to show his experience, and he is probably the better pick in this fight.
Remember this. A lot of things don't make sense. Like Dan Hooker, who had the experience and the better fighters he's fought, and he's never been knocked out. Goes and gets, he's never been knocked out against Cory, all these guys he fought. And then first 2 minutes, how many minutes into that fight, Mike Chandler knocks him right out. This is the first time he's been knocked out now, right? So Manel Kape can come out here and blitz him and knock him out in the first minute and shock everyone. So
yep.
And a new guy and a new guy's in the division, right? So as far as betting goes, I might just sit back and enjoy the show. I might just sit back and enjoy our bet live. Because if I see Manel win the first round, I know that Pantoja, second, third round, is a strong play. But as far as going in before the fight, I most likely will be sitting back watching the fight.
Agreed. Great point. Let's move on to fight number 4. In that case, we have Marion Reneau versus Macy Chiasson. This one, let's talk about Reneau a bit. Decent boxing, decent kickboxing, decent movement, decent use of the jab. Not overly impressed, but pretty decent. She does fight from the outside. Sometimes it even looks like she's retreating if you put the pressure on her. So that's going to be something to pay attention to, especially with Chiasson. She comes forward a lot, so that's going to play a factor in the eyes of the judges. She has this really interesting high guard or long guard, however you want to refer to it. It can be penetrated if you put combos together. She has this sort of flinching motion as well that she makes, and it makes it a bit easier to catch her timing. Watch her last fight versus Raquel Pennington. We saw Pennington kind of bully her against the cage at times. We knew Pennington was just the stronger fighter in that situation, where that might not be the case here, but nonetheless, still something to highlight. It was a split decision. It could have gone either way, but Pennington had a little bit more later on in the fight. That said, she does have a bit of a clinch. She does have a bit of a ground game of her own. She's not clueless down there, of course. I like her knees in the clinch. I like her ability to stay in a dominant position against the cage. And she can kind of go to that old school rough 'em up style if needed, right? And decent takedowns as well if needed. But, of course, she's 43 years old. So at what point is her body going to sort of break down? She's one of these fighters that can kind of do a little bit of everything. She's pretty tough, willing to engage. But again, like I said, slows down as the fight goes on. So this is going to be interesting to see if Macy Chiasson can do this. For Chiasson, she has some quality wins on her resume, right? Sarah Morris, Gina Manzani, Penny Kianzad. So we've seen her win on this stage before. Obviously very tall for the division. She's going to have a 5-inch height advantage and a 4-inch reach advantage. Pretty aggressive striking, long punches, willing to engage. She definitely comes forward. A lot of knees, right? Tie clinch, a lot of knees. That's kind of her game. That's good. That's what's going to be coming from her. Has some takedown defense as well with a pretty long frame. She's going to attempt the takedown in her own right. She's going to use her frame to kind of keep you on the ground, kind of just put her long body on you and kind of just stop you from being able to move. And she does apply some ground and pound to that as well. What I don't love about Chiasson is that, you know, she does look somewhat sloppy at times, borderline wild at times. I feel like she can absolutely use a bit more technique to her game. The thing with Reneau is that, you know, if you can overwhelm her, right? In general, you can overwhelm her, whether it's outstriking her or whether it's, you know, roughing her up, out roughing her, aggressively clinching, or whether it's, you know, out ground gaming her. She just has that ability to kind of be, you know, overwhelmed in different positions. And I think Macy Chiasson has that type of style and is that type of fighter to make that happen. And more than anything, I'm gonna have to bank on the youth. So my pick for this one, although I don't really love this fight from a betting perspective, with this fight, I am gonna have to go with Macy Chiasson.
Yeah, I get it, man. She's supposed to win this fight. I think the UFC is I think the UFC wants her to win. Look, she's like the third fight until the main event, and Macy Chiasson's fighting a 43-year-old. So who's the UFC really trying to push, right? When you think that she's the third fight until the main event, like she's on the main card as well, fighting a fighter 9-6. So the UFC definitely has high hopes for Macy. It looks like. I think she's a hard fighter to beat because she's a tall fighter in that division, and she has power. Like she's very sloppy, but if she can land, she can definitely knock people out. And she's one of the few fighters in that division that actually gets finished. She gets a lot of finishes, and that's like that. I'm worried about that because she has a big reach advantage, and then this girl gets finishes. Like she finished at least four. She has 4 finishes, right? So and 2 submissions. So she has 6. Come on. So she's looking to finish this fight. So you got to think she's going to win. She has good body kicks. I'm not betting this fight. I'm not watching this fight because we know how women's MMA is. You could do all the research in the world, and then when they come to the ring, it's a completely different. A lot of things just go out the window. Like when the fight gets a little hectic, a lot of game plans go out the window. So this fight, I can see it going 3 rounds. Reneau's never been finished. She's fought high-level fighters, the better fighters. Like look who Macy has fought. Her best opponent is probably Gina Mazzani. Is arguably the best opponent she faced. I'm gonna go with the underdog. I'm not betting this fight, but if I do, I'm gonna put a little coin on the underdog here, Marion Reneau. I know she's 43, but she's in a lot better shape than a lot of these fighters that are younger than her. So she's obviously she obviously takes her training serious. I know Macy does as well. I was peeping through both of their Instagrams. Macy's training looks a bit more intense. Like she's taking it a bit more serious, but Reneau was taking it serious as well. So we're gonna have a good fight. But I'm gonna go with Marion Reneau. I'm gonna go with her. I think that she has better striking. I think, as you said, Macy's really sloppy. I get why I get why everyone's going with Macy. Again, she should win this fight. But I think this is a spot that Marion arguably is arguably the better fighter, but she's older. So I'm gonna go with Marion Reneau here in a fight that, because I'm not, to be honest, I might be biased in my pick, so guys don't really take my opinion here because Macy really upset me when she lost that fight to, what was that girl's name? I had good money on Macy to win that fight, and she let me down. So she was taken down, and Lena Landsberg, the elbow queen, is that her name? So I'm not putting anything on Macy here. I like Reneau here to win this fight. Again, upset. So
I can't lie, did not see that.
I don't feel good, but I gotta go with Reneau on this one.
Bettors, let us know how you guys feel in the comments. Who are you going with, Marion Reneau or Macy Chiasson? Let us know as we move on to the co-main event. I'm definitely looking forward to this one. We have Cory Sandhagen versus Frankie Edgar. I mean, listen, you want to take the helms on this one because I have my pick and I'm pretty confident.
Okay, so we know Frankie Edgar. He's gonna be one of the best fighters of all time when everything's said and done. He's going to be one of the best lightweight fighters of all time as well, obviously. So in this fight, he's kind of outgunned. He's the older fighter. At this moment, Cory Sandhagen likely has the better wrestling. At this point, Cory Sandhagen is the better striker. I don't see how Edgar wins unless his wrestling is better and he can kind of bully him like he did to Yair Rodriguez. But I don't think. But Cory has wrestling, so Edgar won't be able to do that to Cory like what he did to Yair. So I don't know how to say it, man. I think Cory is a good pick. I think he's better everywhere in this fight. He has that long reach as well. He's quicker. I don't see how Edgar wins this fight. So I got Cory Sandhagen, and I'm confident with my boy Cory.
Yeah, likewise. I'm going all the way Cory Sandhagen on this one. I think he's just too much at this point, too much output. I mean, we saw the significant strike advantage, 6.88 versus 3.7. Sandhagen actually has the highest strike rate in bantamweight history. So, you think about Edgar being active, imagine Sandhagen at that point. But like I said, too much output. He's younger. I think he's going to keep the distance to negate Edgar's ability to wrestle. I think he's going to be able to handle Edgar's movement with movement of his own. And I think the calf kick is going to be a crazy key factor in this fight. Cory Sandhagen is a big favorite on this fight, and I think that is for a reason. Love Frankie Edgar. Like you said, legend, definitely going to go down as one of the best. But, there's new blood, right? And it is Cory Sandhagen. So going to have to go Cory Sandhagen all the way on that one. So let's go then to our main event. We have Alistair Overeem versus Alexandre Volkov. This fight, I feel both fighters do have a path to victory here. I feel Volkov can sort of use his pressure, his strikes. He can outstrike Overeem. Overeem can use his patience and his clinch and his takedown game to draw out a decision. I mean, we know Volkov is the bigger fighter, 6'7", 265, definitely fills out the division. Overeem, he's no longer Ubereem, but he's still rocking around at about 250 pounds, so not a small guy in his own right. I mean, we somewhat know both fighters at this point, right? I mean, Overeem, he knows how. First of all, he knows that this is his last run at a title shot. I think he mentioned something along the lines of 3 or 4 more fights left in his career. He won his last 2 fights. I mean, he kind of knows this is it for him, right? He can't really afford a loss in his head if he wants a real shot. We know Overeem used to have a very suspect chin, but I feel like, not to say that hasn't been a factor, because it kind of still has, but he's been able to survive and he's been able to still win these fights. Watch his fight against Augusto Sakai. He had moments there. Sakai had moments there against Overeem, but especially watch that fight against Walt Harris, Alistair Overeem versus Walt Harris. And remember that prior to that fight, Walt Harris finished his last 2 opponents in 15 seconds and in 50 seconds. And if you don't want to watch that whole fight, just watch the first 2 minutes of it or the first 3 minutes of it. Walt Harris put it on Overeem. Overeem was able to survive it, end up finishing the fight in the later rounds. I think it was in the championship rounds, and that was by ground and pound, right? So, I mean, he's a very interesting fighter nowadays because I feel like he has that ability to survive a bit more against these big hitters. And again, I think that's a key victory for Volkov. Not to say he's a big puncher, but in terms of knocking him out, it's less likely than it would have been, say, 4 years ago or so, right? Still has some pop in his punches. He's pretty accurate. He doesn't throw a lot, doesn't really waste punches. That could be a good or a bad thing in terms of scoring a round. And I think the striking defense is a little bit of a mixed bag. I mean, he shows good movement to get out the way of punches, but when he gets hit or when he gets hurt, he might turtle up or he might just hold the high guard. And depending on the referee, if it's Herb Dean, that fight might be stopped. Whereas he might not be getting hurt. You know what I mean? So, and he also has that Muay Thai ability to kind of clinch, make it dirty, start kneeing, and see how he can get this fight to the ground and sort of win rounds in that way. Still has a good ground and pound, has very high fight IQ. There's a lot of things to like about Alistair Overeem in this fight. When it comes to Alexandre Volkov, I mean, not to get fully into him, but he's going to be long. He's going to be long. He's going to be coming forward. He's going to look to close distance. We know kicks are a very active part of his game. And he's definitely down to exchange once he closes that distance. But like I said, I mean, although both fighters have a path to victory, naturally you might want to go with the younger guy in Volkov, but both of these guys are definitely older in the ring than their age may indicate, with just the amount of fights that they've had. I'm going to have to go with Overeem. I'm going to have to trust Overeem in a 5-round fight. I think if Volkov doesn't seriously hurt him in the first round or two, I can see Overeem winning rounds 3, 4, and 5, or I can see Overeem, looking to take the fight to the ground and sort of keep it on the ground and just win in the same way that he did against Walt Harris. So, I think Overeem has a few more paths to victory, in my opinion. But I definitely think this fight on the feet is dangerous, and Volkov can definitely catch him. But I'm going to have to go with the underdog. Overeem is the underdog on this fight, and my pick is going to be Alistair Overeem.
That's a good pick, That's a good pick, because this is going to be a good fight between two veterans. Between them, they have close to 100 fights, right? Or even more. I'm not good with the math, but they're somewhere around that mark, right? So this is a fight where we got two really experienced fighters, two strikers, and I think this is going to stay standing. Overeem has the threat of the takedown, so he can definitely get him on the ground. And one thing about Overeem, when he gets you on the ground, he has some of the nastiest ground and pound. Like he'll just finish the fight if he can get on top of you. That's how nasty his ground and pound. But the thing about Volkov is he was taken down by our big guy over there. That's the name,
Curtis Razor Blades.
I see him get up, man. I see him get up. So I like that. So one thing I've been noticing about heavyweight fights is that when you have two heavyweight strikers and the fight mainly stays standing, a lot of the time with these heavyweight strikers, it comes down to, if it's going to be a striking fight and they're heavyweights, a lot of times it comes down to who's the better boxer. That guy has the upper hand. Whoever is the better boxer has the upper hand in these fights. Again, these heavyweights, one punch can knock anybody out. We know that. And we've seen Derek Lewis knock out Volkov. But I like Volkov in this spot. I think his height, I think the height he has, I think his boxing is some of the best boxing in the UFC. No one really talks about. He has that steady jab, that distance fighting. I can see him giving Overeem problems. I can see him just like winning rounds. So I'm gonna go with Alexander Volkov. He just dealt with the speed of what's that football player? I know it's not a good example. Hardy is not a good example. He's not that high level fighter, but he's quick. He lands. He touches everybody, and he couldn't really land on Volkov. So Overeem's a different beast. I'm not comparing the two at all. But what I'm saying is that Volkov knows what he's doing in the striking stance. And if they're going to stand up, I think Volkov is like a younger Overeem, where this is Overeem like 5-10 years ago, I think. So I think Overeem's too old for this matchup, and I think that the age is going to show. And I like Volkov here with the better boxing. A lot of times, again, comes to strikers, heavyweights, the better boxer has a big advantage. They have the upper hand, and a lot of times it goes their way. So I'm going to go with Volkov to win this fight.
Not a bad pick, and definitely a big factor to consider in that heavyweight division, to your point of the better boxing. So that's going to be an interesting one. I'm definitely, the fan in me wants to see Overeem get one more shot at the title. So there may be a little bit of bias there, but I think there's reasons to pick either fighter in this one. That's going to be an interesting one. Let's take them to Vegas. Let's see what parlay picks we have for our bettors today. What are we thinking from a parlay? Let's kind of go with a parlay. I'm definitely throwing Denise Bondar on that parlay. Let me think here.
All right, I got my parlay. I got Cody Stamann.
Yep.
Cory Sandhagen. And we're gonna throw in there We're gonna throw in there Yusuf Zalal.
I like that. That's a good parlay. That's a real good parlay. That's a plus 146. $100 will return $246. That's 146 in profit, of course. For our bigger bettors, $250 will return 615 for 3 fights that we feel pretty good about.
Yo,
So that's a good one.
Sorry to cut you off. We gotta wait for the odds on the Timur Valiev versus Martin Day. We didn't do a breakdown, but Timur Valiev all day.
Agreed.
And next week, but the thing is, we don't know what the odds are for that fight. But yeah, we'll just have to all wait and see what the odds are. But Timur Valiev, I think is both of our picks here to hurt Martin Day.
Definitely. And to your point, the fight that he was scheduled to fight versus Julio Arce, he's a minus 138. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's still paying good money versus Martin Day. And yeah, look for Valiev to piece him up. I'm definitely looking forward to that. I don't think my parlay really differs much. Again, I like Denise Bondar. I like Yusuf Zalal. And I really like Cody Stamann on this. If you wanted to avoid Sandhagen at the minus 400, then, go with the slightly juicier parlay. Obviously, Sandhagen is the better pick. So keep that in mind in terms of a pretty solid pick here. But if you went with a 3-fight parlay, Denise Bondar, Yusuf Zalal, and Cody Stamann, $100 will return $309. So, of course, more than a double up there. And for our larger bettors, $250 will return $773. So some decent opportunity there. And let's give them an underdog. Who do you like on the underdog pick?
I think if you're looking at underdog, I know I went with Pantoja, but Manel Kape is an underdog to look at. If you're looking for the underdog route, I'm gonna go through them. Like Alex De Silva is an underdog you can look at. Alex De Silva, Odie Osborne, but that's your boy Bondar, so I'm not gonna say nothing there. But Alex De Silva, underdog you can look at. Danilo Marquez, underdog you can look at.
Yep.
Manel Kape, underdog you can look at. Laura Procopio is an underdog you can look at.
And I still got to give it to my guy, Clay Guida.
Jocelyn Edwards is an underdog you can look at. So I know I might have picked on the other side, but I know some gamblers are they're hunting for the underdogs, right? So these are fights that can switch on the day. So these are fights that they can go either way. Both fighters got a path, right? So that's for me. And even Marion Reneau, that's another underdog for me. And Overeem, I went Volkov, but these are fights These are fights I could turn, right? So, but just there you go. That's for me.
Yeah, my again, you bring up every single potential underdog that absolutely could win. If I were to, you put a gun to my head and you said pick one underdog, I'm probably going to go with Alistair Overeem at plus 150. I like what that's looking like. Can you pick one if you got to put a gun to your head, or just kind of open season for some of our bettors?
All right, one underdog?
Yeah.
Alex De Silva or Manel Kape. Okay, Alex De Silva I think has a good chance to win. Actually, that's even money, right? So that's not really an underdog.
Yeah. So Manel Kape.
Manel Kape.
There you go. Definitely has a path to victory in this one. It's going to be an interesting card. Good luck to everyone as usual. Rate, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Let's get this video spread. Again, we're trying to make everyone some solid money here. In the meantime, boxing MMA picks. It's another edition, another UFC event, UFC Fight Night 184, aka UFC Vegas 18. Alistair Overeem versus Alexandre Volkov. As usual, I go by the name of Harris. I am joined with Zan. Let's get this money.
Let's do it.